How old are you? Mama wants to say young so bad. Yay!
On the evening of July 11, 2025, in a quiet Mississippi neighborhood, a man walked into his own home and turned it into a crime scene. After long arguments, he snapped and decided to punish his wife, and to do this, he aimed a gun at his 6-year-old daughter and fired. Then, he turned the weapon on his son, and before fleeing into the shadows, he made sure the woman he once claimed to love, his daughter's mother, would never draw another breath. It is a nightmare no parent should ever face, one that flipped the definition of love on its head, not by accident, not in a moment of fear, but with full awareness of who was there and why he was about to do what he did. As the police dive deep into the case, it becomes clear that this wasn't just a family dispute. This was a calculated execution, carried out by a man whose need for control finally turned deadly. Authorities began to uncover a sick story of control, manipulation, and how Nicaria's life was stolen by the one person who should have protected it. This is the life and death of Nicaria LaShawn Jude.
It's just sad to know that someone would be that angry and do something this tragic to anyone, and especially his children, and to, her as well.
This unfortunate story took place in Tunica County, Mississippi. It is a quiet, rural area known for its strong community ties, historic blues roots, and casino-lined riverfront that draws occasional tourism. The atmosphere is laid back with winding roads that give it a peaceful, Old South feel. However, in 2025, the county struggled with a high crime rate. This left residents with a 1 in 25 chance of being victimized. Out of this narrow statistic, Nicaria's danger was already in her home. On December 5, 1995, Nicaria LaShawn Jude, affectionately known as Lady, was born in the heart of Tunica County. She was from a close and tight family who loved, adored, and doted on her. Her community knew her as a warm, funny, and welcoming spirit, the kind of woman who could make anyone feel like family. With her signature smile and infectious laugh, she was a light in any room. She was raised in a small community in Robinsonville, a quiet area known more for its casinos than crime. The town was tight-knit, people looked out for each other, and neighbors were more like extended family. After graduating from local schools, Nicaria focused on building a stable and simple life. She worked regular jobs and stayed grounded in her values, while harboring a desire for love and companionship like many humans do. But this ache would soon lead her into the arms of a highly dysfunctional man. Nicaria soon got into an on and off relationship with 41-year-old Markello Braxton, a man she deeply trusted. It is unclear how they met, but it is certain that the two were intensely attracted to each other and shared a deep bond. The start of their relationship was as blissful as any other, and it was only a matter of time before they had a blessing to celebrate. Nicaria and Markello soon shared a child, and this became Nicaria's true passion. Her daughter, Marlasia, was her world. They did everything together. Walks, bedtime routines, TikToks, first days of school, and birthday celebrations. Every smile Nicaria wore seemed tied to her daughter. But like many women across the country, Nicaria's private life told a much darker story. Her relationship with Markello had spanned years, filled with breakups and reconciliations, tension and temporary peace. But underneath the surface was a cycle of emotional chaos, jealousy, and escalating control. And that control had started to bleed into violence. Between 2015 and March 2024, the Tunica County Sheriff's Office received at least 7 domestic disturbance calls involving Nicaria and Markello. The first was recorded just a few months after they began living together. The most recent was less than 4 months before a fatal incident. Nicaria recognized the increasing danger that was involved in continuing to be with Markello. With her daughter on the line, she knew what she had to do. Nicaria decided to leave him. Those closest to her say she tried to leave many times, but fear, love, and the hope that things would improve kept pulling her back. According to those close to the family, Markello had made troubling statements over the years, comments suggesting that if Nicaria had ever disrespected or betrayed him, he would make her feel it. Each call was a warning, and yet nothing changed. The relationship continued, the danger deepened, until it exploded. On Friday evening, July 11, 2025, everything unraveled. It was 7:06 p.m. when the Tunica County Sheriff's Office received a chilling 911 call from 1060 Soleil Drive. Reports of multiple gunshots had shattered the peace of the neighborhood. Authorities rushed to the scene on Soleil Drive within minutes of the 911 call, but by then, the damage had already been done. When deputies arrived, they found the home in chaos, blood, broken furniture, bullet casings, and an eerie silence that said everything. Inside that house was the aftermath of what one deputy would later describe as a targeted execution. Inside the home, 3 people were down. One, 30-year-old Nicaria Jude, was beyond saving. Although she was confirmed dead, there was no time to grieve. Not yet. 2 others were clinging to life. 6-year-old Marlasia Braxton was barely conscious. Her small body bore the trauma of a bullet wound inflicted by the very man who had once carried her on his shoulders. Beside her, 24-year-old Marquavius Young, Markello's adult son from another relationship, had also been shot and wounded. Both Marlasia and Marquavius were still breathing. That's when paramedics from Pafford EMS jumped into action. While deputies secured the perimeter, medical crews worked frantically to stabilize the children. Due to the severity of the injuries, air support was called in immediately. Marlasia was flown to Le Bonheur Children's Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee, a regional facility with a pediatric trauma center. Marquavius was rushed to Regional One Health, also in Memphis. Back at the crime scene, investigators were beginning to piece together what had just happened. But one chilling question hung over everything. Where was Markello Braxton?
And new at 10, a man accused of the mother of his child and 2 others, including his 6-year-old daughter, is on the run tonight. At this hour, the Tunica County Sheriff's Office says they're looking for Markello Braxton. WREG's Raven Copeland has more on what neighbors saw.
People who live on Soleil Drive are struggling to make sense of a tragedy that happened in their neighborhood.
It's extremely quiet. It was a shock because I come from the back, getting ready to leave, and it was just lights everywhere and everything was cordoned off.
Friday evening, an unimaginable crime unfolded in this quiet community. The Tunica County Sheriff's Office responded to a fired call in the 1000 block of Soleil Drive. When deputies arrived, they found 3 victims, including 30-year-old Nicaria Jude, who died from her injuries. A 6-year-old girl and 24-year-old man were also shot and airlifted to hospitals. Deputies identified the gunman as Markello Braxton.
And so it's just sad to know that someone would be that angry and do something this tragic to anyone, and especially his children and to, her as well.
That neighbor, who did not want to be on camera, tells WREG that Braxton dated the victim who died, and they shared a 6-year-old daughter who Braxton is also accused of.
I spoke with my neighbor, and she was giving me the description of what happened. It was pretty intense. I was shocked to hear about what happened, to be honest.
At this time, investigators have been unable to find Braxton, who they consider armed and dangerous. Neighbors told WREG they'll remain on edge until he's arrested.
Well, that's scary because we don't know what mental state he is in. And I saw early on social media, his sister was saying that he's in a really deep, dark place right now.
As the search continues for the gunman in this deadly, neighbors say they're praying for healing and recovery for the victim's family. Reporting from Tunica County, for your news leader, Raven Copeland, WREG News Channel 3.
So sad. If you can help authorities find Braxton, call the Tunica County Sheriff's Office.
Deputies quickly identified him as the primary suspect. They confirmed that he had fled the scene on foot, or possibly in a vehicle, and was considered armed and extremely dangerous. But just when they feared he had disappeared without a trace, they found their first clue. Witnesses from the neighborhood told law enforcement they had seen Markello storm out of the home just after the gunshots. Some reported hearing a car engine shortly after. Others said he may have taken off through the nearby woods. Either way, the direction was clear. Now, the search was on. Meanwhile, investigators began reviewing Braxton's history. What they uncovered painted a disturbing picture. According to official reports, the Tunica County Sheriff's Office had responded to 7 domestic disturbance calls involving Nigeria and Markello over the years. The first call dated all the way back to July 28, 2015. The most recent had been logged just 4 months prior, on March 10, 2025. Each call told a story of a relationship in distress, a cycle of reconciliation and abuse, the kind of history that too often ends in tragedy, and now it had. But law enforcement wasn't giving up. Within hours, they released photos of Markello Braxton to the public. Flyers labeled him armed and dangerous and included the address of the shooting, 1060 Soleil Drive. Crime Stoppers posted a tip line. Local stations aired footage. The goal was simple: find him before anyone else got hurt. But despite the urgency, Markello was nowhere to be found. Days passed. Officers combed the nearby areas, including wooded stretches between the homes and a nearby golf course. Helicopters swept above. Patrols intensified, but still, no sign of him. Until Monday, July 15th. A body had been discovered in a wooded area behind the Soleil Drive residence. It was close, too close to the site of the attack. Right at that moment, the manhunt came to a chilling end. The body was identified as that of 41-year-old Markello Braxton.
Now, the Tunica County Sheriff's Office has found the body of a man that they believe is responsible for a triple that happened last Friday night. The left one woman and 2 others injured, including a 6-year-old girl. Deputies believe that Markello Braxton, who you see on your screen, and 30-year-old Nigeria Jude Friday night. A 24-year-old man and Braxton's 6-year-old daughter were also injured in that. Deputies found the body near the home where the shooting took place. No word yet on how Braxton died. The body will be sent to the Mississippi Crime Lab in Jackson.
According to reports from the Tunica County Sheriff's Office, Markello had died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. The same man who had destroyed an entire family had taken his own life just feet away from where he committed the crime. But the discovery raised even more questions. Why hadn't they found him sooner? Had he never actually left the area? And most tragically, could any of this have been prevented? Investigators confirmed that his body had been lying in a field between the neighborhood and the bordering golf course. It was a secluded patch of land, dense with trees and tall brush. Authorities couldn't say exactly how long it had been there, but the message was clear. The suspect, who had once been the partner of Nigeria and the father to both surviving victims, had ended the violent saga himself, leaving behind a trail of grief, trauma, and questions no one would ever be able to answer. Meanwhile, the community had already begun to mourn, because for many, this wasn't just about a father's shocking betrayal or a mother's senseless murder. It was about a system that had failed to intervene. Despite being warned time and time again, domestic violence advocates were outraged. 7 calls for help, 7 documented incidents over nearly a decade, and yet Markello was still allowed to live in the same home. He was never formally charged with domestic abuse, No restraining order had ever been enforced, and there were no known protections in place to keep Nykeria or her children safe. Markello's death, though it ended the pursuit, provided no real closure for the family left behind. For many in the community, it only added to the trauma. Markello would never stand trial. There would be no cross-examination, no opportunity for the victim's loved ones to look him in the eye and demand answers. A GoFundMe was created by the family, not just to cover funeral expenses for Nykeria, but to fund medical treatment and emotional support for 6-year-old Marlasia. For Marlasia Braxton and Marquavius Young, the pain was far more than physical. Both had survived the shooting. Both had been airlifted to Memphis hospitals. After multiple surgeries, they were released, but what they returned home to was a world forever changed. Marlasia had lost her mother. Her father was gone too. At just 6 years old, she was left to process a future without either parent. She was placed in the care of her grandparents, Angela and Leon, who promised to provide the safety and stability her life had so violently lost. But even through the heartbreak, something powerful happened. On the day of her hospital release, a multi-county law enforcement procession formed to escort Marlasia home. Officers from Tunica, Shelby, DeSoto, and Coahoma counties united to ensure her return was safe and symbolically embraced. Sirens echoed not in warning, but in honor. Neighbors lined the streets to wave and cheer. It wasn't justice, but it was love. A reminder that even in the darkest of moments, communities can stand up and wrap themselves around those who have been broken.
At 6, a ray of hope coming out of a dark story. A 6-year-old victim out of the hospital tonight, back home with her family. Action News 5's Garner Montgomery live in studio with a look at the moment she left Le Bonheur. Garner.
The Tunica County Sheriff's Office, they organized a procession today to escort this 6-year-old victim from Le Bonheur Children's Hospital back home. That's them revving their engines. The procession kicked off at 3:30 today outside the hospital campus here in Memphis. The Tunica County Sheriff's Office was joined by the sheriff's departments from Shelby, DeSoto, and Coahoma counties, along with Tunica Police. 6-year-old Marlasia Braxton was injured on Friday. At the same time, her mother, 30-year-old Nykeria Jude, was and killed. The suspected Markel Braxton was found yesterday afternoon. The sheriff's office says this escort is how they are taking a unified stance against domestic violence. More on the story straight ahead and on the web, including a link to the GoFundMe for the victim and her family. Tunica County Sheriff's Office is asking anyone experiencing domestic violence to reach out to someone you trust. You can also call your local law enforcement for help or the domestic violence hotline at 800-799-7233. Reporting live in studio, Garner Montgomery, Action News 5.
All right, Garner, now 12 hours before the little girl was let out of the hospital, police say the man behind the deadly was found dead. Authorities had been searching for Markel Braxton since Friday. He says police say, and Nykeria Jude in Robinsonville. Once again, a GoFundMe has been created for 6-year-old Marlasia. It will help pay for her recovery, along with funeral expenses for her mother. To donate, we have a link for you on our website, actionnews5.com.
The little girl also spoke to reporters after leaving the hospital, saying she missed her mother and wanted everyone to know her name. Her name was Nykeria Jude. Meanwhile, the extended family began publicly sharing their grief and calling for awareness. Angela, Marlasia's grandmother, spoke softly through tears, describing how deeply touched she was by the love shown to her granddaughter. Anna, a close family friend, described Nykeria as someone whose presence could light up any room, a person who made everyone feel like family. Others recalled how Nykeria had spent her days laughing, hyping up her friends, and most importantly, caring for her child. But beneath the mourning came a question too painful to ignore. Could this have been prevented? His family members admitted that Markello had struggled with his mental health for years. His own sister took to Facebook to express the heartache of loving someone who had fallen into darkness. She revealed that the family had seen signs of instability and even feared he would do something drastic one day, but still, like so many others, they watched, hoped, and prayed it wouldn't come to this. And so the conversation turned to something larger. How many more? How many more women would die before domestic violence is treated like the epidemic it truly is? Nikeria's death became more than a headline. It became a call to action. At her funeral, mourners filled the sanctuary in Tunica. Her favorite colors, purple and white, lined the pews. Purple for domestic violence awareness, white for the innocents lost. Speakers remembered her smile, her energy, the way she made others feel like they mattered. They remembered a young mother who gave everything for her daughter, a woman who deserved life, freedom, and peace, but instead she was buried too young because someone she loved turned her home into a war zone. And while Markello's body was sent to the state crime lab for final identification, that chapter of the story was already closed. There would be no courtroom drama, no sentencing, just a community left to rebuild around the ruins he left behind. And now, the question remains, what will we do with it? Because if you or someone you know is in a dangerous relationship, please don't wait. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is available 24/7 at 1-800-799-7233. There are shelters, advocates, and resources ready to help. You don't have to wait until it's too late. As for little Marlasia, she will grow up knowing her mother died protecting her. She will grow up hearing stories of how strong and loving Nikeria was. And she will grow up surrounded by people determined to make sure what happened to her never happens again. This was the life and death of Nikeria Jude. May her memory never fade, and may her story change someone else's future. Let us know what you think in the comments section below.